In the lush, verdant kingdom of Chima, nestled deep within the heart of Nigeria, there lived a young princess whose beauty was unparalleled. Her name was Amaka, and she was the pride and joy of her loving parents, King Chukwu and Queen Nneka. From the moment of her birth, the people of the kingdom had marveled at the infant princess, captivated by her shimmering ebony hair, her sparkling eyes that seemed to hold the very essence of the night sky, and her radiant smile that could light up even the gloomiest of days. As Amaka grew into a young woman, her beauty only blossomed, and she became the object of admiration for all who laid eyes upon her. The graceful way she carried herself, the kindness that emanated from her very being, it was as if the gods themselves had blessed her with an ethereal splendor that set her apart from ordinary mortals. But unbeknownst to the adoring masses, Amaka harbored a dark secret that threatened to shatter the idyllic facade of her life. For you see, the princess's feet, those delicate appendages that should have been as lovely as the rest of her, were afflicted with a most peculiar and disturbing ailment. From the moment Amaka had taken her first steps as a child, a most foul and unbearable stench had begun to emanate from her lower extremities. It was as if some malevolent sorcery had cursed the princess, imbuing her feet with an aura of pure putrefaction that no amount of bathing or fragrant oils could dispel. The stench was unlike anything anyone in the kingdom had ever encountered. It was a nauseating, gut-wrenching odor that assaulted the senses, causing even the most hardened of royal guards to recoil in horror and flee the princess's presence. Those brave or foolhardy enough to linger in Amaka's company for more than a few moments would invariably find themselves fighting the overwhelming urge to retch, their faces contorting in sheer revulsion. Needless to say, the princess's affliction quickly became the source of great distress and consternation for King Chukwu and Queen Nneka. As the rulers of Chima, they were understandably concerned about the welfare and future of their only child, the heir to the throne. And with Amaka's feet emitting such a loathsome stench, her prospects of finding a suitable husband and producing an heir of her own seemed increasingly bleak. The king and queen summoned the wisest healers, sages, and elders in the land, begging them to uncover the source of the princess's curse and devise a remedy. They spared no expense, scouring the kingdom and beyond for the rarest herbs, potions, and talismans that might hold the key to breaking the affliction. But alas, their efforts were for naught. Try as they might, the healers were utterly confounded, unable to discern the root cause of Amaka's ailment or find a way to alleviate the wretched odor. "I've never encountered anything like this before," lamented one elderly healer, pinching his nose as he hurried away from the princess's chambers. "It is a most vexing and baffling ailment. I fear I am at a complete loss as to how to proceed." Day after day, the king and queen watched helplessly as their beloved daughter retreated further into isolation, the people of the kingdom shunning her with a mixture of revulsion and pity. Amaka, once the shining beacon of joy and hope, found herself relegated to the confines of the palace gardens, the only place where she could seek solace from the cruel realities of her cursed existence. There, amongst the lush greenery and fragrant blooms, Amaka would spend countless hours weeping silently, her tears falling like rain upon the very flowers she tended with such care. It was the only place where she could find respite from the sting of rejection, the anguish of knowing that no man would ever dare to court her, let alone consider her as a wife. "Why me?" she would often ask the heavens, her voice barely above a whisper. "What have I done to deserve this wretched curse?" The years passed, and still the princess's affliction remained a mystery, the stench from her feet only growing more pungent and unbearable with time. Amaka's hopes of one day finding love and happiness began to fade, replaced by a sense of utter hopelessness and resigned acceptance of her solitary fate. Then, one day, a chance encounter in the palace gardens would change the course of Amaka's life forever. It was a balmy afternoon, and Amaka was tending to her beloved flowers as she often did, seeking solace in their vibrant hues and delicate petals. Suddenly, a strange scent wafted through the air, one that was entirely foreign to the princess's senses. Amaka wrinkled her nose, her eyes scanning the garden in search of the source of this new odor. That's when she spotted him, a young man, clearly a traveler from a distant land, making his way along the palace walls. He seemed to be muttering something under his breath, his face contorted in a grimace of disgust. "Phew, what is that dreadful stench?" the young man exclaimed, wrinkling his nose in revulsion. He quickened his pace, his eyes darting about the garden in search of the offending scent. Amaka's heart sank, her cheeks burning with shame as she realized that the foul odor must be emanating from her own feet. Instinctively, she tried to hide herself amongst the flowers, desperate to avoid the stranger's gaze. But it was too late. The young man's eyes had already locked onto the princess, and he was striding towards her with a look of curious concern etched upon his features. "Good heavens," he cried, staggering backwards as the full force of Amaka's stench hit him. "What is wrong with that woman's feet?" Amaka looked up, her eyes brimming with tears of utter mortification. She had grown accustomed to the revulsion and disgust of those who crossed her path, but somehow, the sting of this stranger's reaction felt even more piercing. Yet, to her surprise, the young man did not immediately turn and flee, as so many others had done before him. Instead, he slowly approached Amaka, his expression one of genuine sympathy. "My lady, forgive me," he said gently, his voice laced with concern. "I did not mean to startle you, but I must ask, what is the cause of that dreadful smell?" Amaka hesitated, unsure whether she could trust this stranger with the darkest secret of her life. But there was something about his kind eyes and gentle manner that made her want to confide in him, to unburden herself of the heavy weight she had been carrying for so long. "It is a curse, sir," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "My feet, they emit a foul stench that no one can bear. I have tried everything, but nothing can rid me of this affliction." The young man's brow furrowed in sympathy, and Amaka could see the genuine compassion in his gaze. "That must be a terrible burden to bear," he said, shaking his head solemnly. "I can only imagine how lonely and isolated it must make you feel." Amaka nodded, the tears she had fought so hard to hold back now spilling down her cheeks. "Yes, the people of my kingdom shun me," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "No one will come near me, let alone consider me as a wife. I fear I shall be alone for the rest of my days." The young man was silent for a moment, his eyes filled with a thoughtful, determined expression. Then, to Amaka's utter amazement, he spoke the words that would change the course of her life forever. "My lady, if you will allow me, I would be honored to try and help you break this curse." Amaka stared at him in disbelief, scarcely daring to believe what she had heard. "But how?" she asked, her voice tinged with a glimmer of hope. "Everyone who has tried has failed. What makes you think you can succeed where so many others have not?" The young man smiled, his eyes shining with a quiet confidence. "I may not be from your kingdom, but I have traveled far and wide and encountered many strange and wondrous things," he said. "I have a curious mind and a determined spirit, and I cannot bear to see a beautiful young woman such as yourself condemned to a life of solitude and despair." Amaka felt her heart flutter with a newfound sense of hope, a feeling she had long since abandoned. Could this stranger truly be the one to break the curse that had plagued her for so many years? "If you truly believe you can help me, then I am willing to try," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I must warn you, the smell is unlike anything you have ever encountered. It may very well make you ill." The young man let out a light-hearted chuckle, his expression unwavering. "My lady, I have smelled many foul things in my travels," he said, a mischievous glint in his eye. "I dare say I can handle a little foot odor." He extended his hand to her, his gaze filled with determination. "Now, tell me, what must I do?" Amaka hesitated for the briefest of moments, her heart torn between the desire to trust this stranger and the fear of yet another disappointment. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw a glimmer of something she had not encountered in years: genuine compassion and unwavering resolve. With a deep breath, she placed her trembling hand in his, sealing their pact. "Very well," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let us begin." And so the quest to break the curse of the maiden with the stinking feet commenced, an unlikely partnership forged in the heart of the palace gardens, where the most extraordinary of transformations would soon take place. From that fateful day in the palace gardens, Chike, the young traveler from a distant land, became a fixture in the life of Princess Amaka, the cursed maiden whose feet emitted a stench so foul that no one could bear to be near her. Day after day, Chike would return to the verdant oasis, armed with a variety of herbs, oils, and other remedies he had gathered from the surrounding villages. With a gentle touch and an unwavering determination, he would set about the arduous task of tending to Amaka's afflicted feet, meticulously washing them and applying soothing lotions and fragrant poultices. At first, the sheer force of the princess's stench was nearly overwhelming, causing Chike to reel back in revulsion, his eyes watering and his stomach lurching. But he steeled himself, refusing to succumb to the wretched odor. Gritting his teeth, he would press on, his brow furrowed in concentration as he focused on his task at hand. Amaka watched in awe as the young stranger persevered, his dedication and compassion a stark contrast to the shuddering recoil and hasty retreats she had grown accustomed to from those who had attempted to help her in the past. Slowly, she began to detect a subtle shift in the air, a slight lessening of the pungent aroma that had long been her constant companion. "It's working," she would whisper, her eyes wide with disbelief. "The smell is lessening." Chike would nod, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I told you I could handle it," he would reply, his voice filled with quiet confidence. "Just you wait, my lady. I'll have you cured in no time." And so their routine continued, day after day, week after week, as Chike meticulously attended to Amaka's feet, experimenting with various herbal concoctions and techniques in his quest to break the curse. The princess, once relegated to the solitary confines of the palace gardens, now found herself eagerly anticipating Chike's daily visits, cherishing the time they spent together in quiet companionship. It was a strange and unexpected dynamic, this blossoming friendship between the cursed princess and the mysterious traveler. Amaka, who had resigned herself to a life of isolation and despair, found herself drawn to Chike's unwavering kindness and steadfast determination. And Chike, in turn, seemed to derive a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment from his efforts to alleviate the princess's affliction. As the weeks turned into months, the tangible results of Chike's work became increasingly evident. The princess's feet, once a source of unbearable stench, began to emit a far more tolerable odor, and Amaka found herself venturing out of the palace gardens with growing confidence. As their bond deepened, Amaka began to see glimpses of a future beyond the confines of her cursed existence. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was a chance for her to find happiness and fulfillment, to reclaim the life that had been stolen from her by the cruel whims of fate. And then, one day, after nearly a year of tireless effort, Chike presented Amaka with a special concoction he had been perfecting. "My lady," he said, his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and anticipation, "I believe this is the final piece of the puzzle." Amaka looked at the small vial in his outstretched hand, its contents a fragrant, amber-colored liquid that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. "Are you certain this will work?" she asked, her voice tinged with a hint of trepidation. Chike nodded, his expression unwavering. "I have left no stone unturned in my search for a cure," he said, his tone filled with quiet confidence. "This potion contains the most potent and rare ingredients I could find: herbs from the deepest jungles, essences from the rarest flowers. It has taken me many months to perfect, but I truly believe it will break the curse once and for all." Amaka's heart raced with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Could this truly be the solution she had been searching for all these years? After so many disappointments and failed attempts, could this be the moment when her torment would finally come to an end? "If you truly believe in it, then I am ready to try," she said, her voice steady despite the fluttering of her heart. Chike smiled, his gaze filled with a gentle reassurance. "Then drink, my lady," he said, offering her the vial. "Drink and be free." Amaka took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Closing her eyes, she uncorked the vial and drank the contents in one swift gulp. For a moment, nothing happened. Amaka held her breath, her body tense with anticipation. Then, a strange tingling sensation began to spread through her, starting from her feet and traveling upwards. She let out a gasp as a warm, cleansing energy seemed to flush through her, washing away the curse like a river breaking through a dam. When the sensation subsided, Amaka opened her eyes and looked down at her feet in wonder. The foul stench was gone, replaced by the fresh, earthy scent of the garden around them. She wiggled her toes, scarcely daring to believe it was true. "It's gone," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with joyful tears. "The curse is broken." Chike beamed with pride, his face alight with a sense of accomplishment and relief. "I knew it would work," he said softly, his voice filled with a quiet triumph. "You are free, my lady." Amaka threw her arms around Chike, hugging him tightly as the tears streamed down her face. "Thank you, my dear friend," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You have given me back my life. I am forever in your debt." In that moment, as the princess and the young traveler embraced, a profound transformation took place. The shackles of the curse that had once bound Amaka to a life of isolation and despair had been broken, and in its place, a newfound sense of freedom and possibility blossomed. From that day on, the kingdom rejoiced at the return of their beloved princess, her radiant beauty now unencumbered by the affliction that had plagued her for so long. Amaka's feet were as sweet-smelling as the flowers she tended, and she became the object of admiration and desire for young men across the land. But Amaka had eyes only for one man, the kind-hearted stranger who had so selflessly come to her aid. As the months passed, her affection for Chike blossomed into a deep and abiding love, a bond that transcended the confines of their initial encounter and grew stronger with each passing day. The people of the kingdom watched in awe as the princess and her savior became inseparable, their union a testament to the power of compassion, perseverance, and the triumph over even the most daunting of curses. And they knew, in their hearts, that this was a love story for the ages, one that would be passed down through the generations as a shining example of the transformative power of true love. In the wake of Chike's miraculous breakthrough, the kingdom of Chima erupted into a frenzy of celebration. Word of the princess's liberation from her long-standing curse spread like wildfire, drawing throngs of people from far and wide who were eager to witness the transformation of the once shunned maiden. As Amaka emerged from the palace, her radiant smile and the sweet, earthy scent that now emanated from her feet were a sight to behold. Gone were the days of shunning and isolation, replaced by a newfound reverence and adoration from the kingdom's subjects. They marveled at the princess's beauty, now unburdened by the affliction that had once been her constant companion, and celebrated the brave young traveler who had achieved the impossible. Chike, too, found himself the center of attention, his humble demeanor and quiet confidence winning the hearts of the people. They crowded around him, showering him with praise and gratitude, their eyes shining with a mixture of awe and respect. "You have given us back our princess," they would exclaim, their voices brimming with joy. "How can we ever repay you for your selfless act?" Chike would simply smile and shake his head, his gaze fixed on Amaka's beaming face. "I have done nothing more than what any compassionate soul would do," he would reply. "The princess deserves to be free, and I am honored to have played a part in breaking her curse." As the weeks turned into months, the bond between Amaka and Chike deepened, their affection for one another blossoming into a profound, all-consuming love. The princess, once condemned to a life of solitude and despair, now found herself the object of intense admiration and desire from young men across the kingdom. But her heart belonged to only one, the kind-hearted stranger who had risked everything to restore her. Chike, too, found himself captivated by Amaka's radiant beauty, both inside and out. He marveled at the way her eyes sparkled with an inner light, the effortless grace with which she carried herself, and the unwavering kindness that emanated from her very being. In her he had found a kindred spirit, a soulmate whose own trials and tribulations had forged a strength of character that he found utterly captivating. As their love grew, the king and queen watched with a mixture of joy and pride, their initial skepticism giving way to an unwavering belief in the sincerity and depth of the bond between their daughter and the young traveler. They had seen firsthand the profound impact Chike had had on Amaka's life, and they knew that there was no one else more deserving of their daughter's heart. And so, on a warm summer evening, as the setting sun cast its golden glow over the palace gardens, Chike gathered his courage and approached King Chukwu and Queen Nika, his eyes shining with a mixture of trepidation and determination. "Your Majesties," he began, his voice steady despite the rapid pounding of his heart, "I come to you today with a most earnest request. I have grown to love your daughter, the Princess Amaka, with a depth of feeling that I never could have imagined, and it is my dearest hope that you would grant me the honor of taking her as my wife." The king and queen exchanged a knowing glance, their faces breaking into wide, delighted smiles. Without a moment's hesitation, they rose from their thrones and embraced Chike, their laughter echoing through the halls of the palace. "My dear boy," King Chukwu exclaimed, his eyes shining with tears of joy, "there is nothing that would make us happier than to welcome you into our family. Amaka has found her true love, and we are truly blessed." The news of the princess's betrothal quickly spread throughout the kingdom, igniting a frenzy of celebration that had not been seen in Chima for many a year. The people poured into the streets, dancing and singing, their voices carried on the warm evening breeze. "The maiden with the stinking feet is no more," they cried, their faces alight with joy. "Long live the bride with the sweet-smelling feet." And so, on a glorious summer day, the kingdom of Chima gathered to witness the union of Princess Amaka and her savior Chike. The air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers and the joyful laughter of the people, as the beloved couple exchanged their vows beneath the warm glow of the setting sun. Amaka, radiant in her flowing white gown, could hardly contain her happiness as she gazed into Chike's eyes, his gentle features reflecting the profound love and devotion that had brought them together. Gone were the days of isolation and despair, replaced by a future filled with boundless possibilities and the promise of a love that would transcend even the most daunting of challenges. As the newlyweds embarked on their new life together, Amaka knew that her future was brighter than she had ever dared to dream. No longer would she be shunned and ostracized, but rather she would be cherished and celebrated as the queen she was destined to become. And with Chike by her side, she knew that no curse, no matter how formidable, could ever keep them apart. In the years that followed, Amaka and Chike's love only grew stronger, their bond forged through the trials they had faced and the triumph they had achieved. They ruled the kingdom with a wisdom and compassion that earned them the reverence of their subjects, who marveled at the transformation of their once cursed princess and the extraordinary young man who had saved her. Whenever Amaka would look down at her perfectly normal, sweet-smelling feet, she would be reminded of the brave traveler who had seen past her affliction and found the true beauty that lay within. It was a testament to the power of perseverance, kindness, and the transformative nature of true love, a story that would be passed down through the generations, inspiring all who heard it to look beyond the surface and embrace the radiance that lies within. And the people of Chima, from the highest nobility to the humblest of peasants, would speak in awe of the remarkable young man who had had the courage to defy the odds and unlock the hidden splendor of their beloved princess. His name would be hailed as a symbol of hope, a shining example of the extraordinary feats that can be accomplished when one is driven by a compassionate heart and an unwavering spirit. As the years went by, Amaka and Chike's reign was marked by an era of unprecedented prosperity and harmony. They were revered as the most beloved royal couple in the kingdom's history, their subjects showering them with the deepest admiration and respect. But for Amaka and Chike, their true triumph lay not in the accolades and adoration they received, but in the profound connection they shared, a bond that had been forged in the face of adversity and emerged stronger than ever. They had faced the darkest of curses and emerged victorious, their love serving as a beacon of hope and inspiration to all who witnessed their remarkable journey. And so the tale of the maiden with the stinking feet became a beloved folktale, passed down through the generations as a testament to the power of perseverance, kindness, and the transformative nature of true love. It was a story that would continue to captivate and inspire, reminding all who heard it that no matter how daunting the challenge, the human spirit has the ability to overcome even the most formidable of obstacles. For in the end, the true triumph was not the breaking of the curse, but the unbreakable bond that had blossomed between Amaka and Chike, a love that transcended the boundaries of the physical and touched the very depths of the soul. And it was this love, this unwavering commitment to one another, that would forever remain the greatest and most enduring legacy of the maiden with the stinking feet.